A serial killer is typically a person who murders 3 or more people, usually in service of abnormal psychological gratification, with the murders taking place over more than a month and including a significant period of time between them. So in this video, we are going to look at the top 10 serial killers. Before starting the video, be sure to smash the like button and subscribe to never miss out on any of our videos. Number 10. Ted Bundy, 1946 to 1989. You don't have to be American or have been around in the 1970s to know the name Ted Bundy. Bundy is easily one of the most deranged serial killers, not to mention kidnappers, rapists, burglars, and necrophiles of all time. His modus operandi included kidnapping his female victims, raping them, and then dismembering them. He often kept their heads as souvenirs. Before he was executed in 1989, Bundy admitted to kidnapping and murdering 30 women, though this number is almost certainly much higher. Number 9. Harold Shipman, 1946 to 2004. Nicknamed Dr. Death, Harold Shipman is thought to be responsible for murdering 218 of his patients between 1972 and 1998. In reality, the number of people he murdered is likely much higher. As a practicing physician, Shipman had easy access to potential victims, which is why he was able to be such a prolific killer without raising suspicion. However, because Shipman was involved in so many cases in which patients died, people eventually began to suspect foul play. Most of his victims were elderly women, whom he said had died in their sleep, but many of these women died during the day, which struck some as odd. Additionally, Shipman asked for an unusually large number of cremation certificates, which caught the attention of an undertaker who reported the odd circumstances of the cremations. Eventually, Shipman was convicted in 2000, but only after a victim's daughter reported that he had tried to write a will for the victim that would name him as the beneficiary. He died by suicide in prison in 2004. Number 8. Andrei Chikatilo, 1936 to 1994. Between 1978 and 1990, the Russian serial killer Andrei Chikatilo sexually assaulted, murdered, and mutilated more than 50 young women and children. Chikatilo killed his victims by stabbing and slashing them with a knife. One of the youngest was 9 years old. Number 7. Jeffrey Dahmer, 1960 to 1994. No list of the most deranged serial killers would be complete without Jeffrey Dahmer. Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, was ultimately convicted of murdering 17 young men over a 14-year period. But Dahmer didn't just murder them. He also raped, dismembered, and sometimes even ate his victims. During his trial, Dahmer admitted to drilling a hole into his victims' heads in an attempt to turn them into mindless sex slaves. Although Dahmer likely would have been executed for his crimes, he was beaten to death in prison in 1994. Number 6. Albert Fish, 1870 to 1936. When a serial killer is dubbed the Brooklyn Vampire, the Moon Maniac, the Werewolf of Wisteria, the Gray Man, and the Boogeyman, it's almost certain he is thoroughly deranged. Fish was tried and found guilty of raping, killing, and cannibalizing 3 children in the early 1900s. However, he claimed that he had murdered more like 100 children, and even boasted that he had children in every state. Especially deranged is the fact that Fish sent a letter to the mother of one of his victims, 10-year-old Grace Budd. The letter detailed how he had lured the little girl, strangled her, and then cut her into pieces to eat over the course of 9 days. Number 5. John Wayne Gacy, 1942 to 1994. There's deranged, and then there's the type of deranged that describes the serial killer John Wayne Gacy. He was nicknamed Killer Clown because of his job attending children's birthday parties and charitable events as Pogo the Clown. His occupation gave him easy access to potential victims. Gacy was convicted of raping, torturing, and murdering 33 teenage boys over a 6-year period. He would lure them to his home, kill them via either strangulation or asphyxiation, then bury them on his property. Gacy was executed in 1994. Number 4. Jack the Ripper, Unidentified serial killer, 1888. Jack the Ripper may be a name that everyone knows, but no one can be certain of his true identity. Whoever he or she really was, Jack the Ripper was definitely deranged. In 1888, Jack the Ripper terrorized the Whitechapel neighborhood of London by slitting the throats and abdomens of at least 5 prostitutes and leaving them for dead. Sometimes he would even remove the woman's uterus and take it as a sort of prize. It's unlikely Jack the Ripper's true identity will ever be figured out, but ripperology, the study and analysis of the murders, has certainly inspired quite a few what-if novels and films over the years. Number 3. Joachim Kroll, 1933 to 1991. German serial killer Joachim Kroll murdered at least 14 people, including young children, between 1955 and 1976. After strangling his victims with his bare hands, Kroll would have sex with their corpses, then cut them up in pieces to eat. Interestingly, Kroll was finally caught after a neighbor complained about a backup in the plumbing. The pipes were clogged with human remains. When Kroll was arrested, he was in the process of simmering body parts taken from his most recent victim, 4-year-old Marion Ketter. Number 2. Joseph James DeAngelo, 1947 to 1986. Though his crimes occurred decades ago, between 1974 and 1986, Joseph James DeAngelo wasn't identified as the Golden State Killer until DNA evidence from one of the crimes was used to match with a close relative of DeAngelo's, which led to his identification and arrest. Over the course of 3 separate crime sprees, DeAngelo murdered at least 13 people, raped more than 50, and committed well over 100 burglaries. One of the reasons why DeAngelo was able to evade identification and capture for so long is because he was a former police officer. His training undoubtedly helped him in planning and executing his crimes while minimizing the physical evidence he left behind. In fact, he was known to have called some of his victims months before he attacked them so he could learn about their routines to more effectively plan his crimes. Number 1. H. Holmes, 1861 to 1896. Of all the deranged serial killers on this list, H. Holmes might be the one most people are unfamiliar with. Holmes was a con artist who moved to Chicago in 1885 and began work in a pharmacy. He built a building near the pharmacy that he used as his base for killing his victims, which number anywhere from 20 to 200. The height of his activity as a serial killer was during the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago. The fair brought thousands of people to the city, and Holmes capitalized on all the newcomers by offering rooms in his building as accommodations for visitors. Later called the Murder Castle, the building Holmes constructed had multiple hidden rooms where he would torture his victims, whom he eventually killed. The building was outfitted with a series of chutes and trap doors that allowed him to easily remove the bodies of his victims from the upper floors and relocate them to the basement, where the bodies were typically burned in a kiln. Let us know your opinion in the comment section below. This was all for today. Hope you liked the video. Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more interesting videos. Stay safe, and we will be back soon with another video.